Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, John, how's it going?
Hey, great. You guys are all
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Hope you had a good weekend. We have a lot of stuff to cover. I know that these Monday and Wednesdays are pretty much just a check-in, but I'm hoping to really compact what we were able to do over the weekend, John Kassar and myself, and really give you a little bit more material to work with, both in terms of the learning and accessing all of the learning, but also in terms of the progress that we've made. And Dan, I'm particularly glad you're with us, Dan Shoemate, because I want to just kind of show you a little bit of what we've done and show everybody else how we got there. So I'm recording this, but I want to start first by showing you what John Kassar did for us over the weekend. I'm going to go to essentially, there are a series of videos that total about 35 minutes, starting with how do you set up a Dynamics 365 trial. John recorded these and I've uploaded it into the YouTube channel that I now call the Microsoft Dynamics Career Launch. So this is where I'm going to put all the custom videos that are not already supplied by Microsoft or some other resource. All right, so this is where you're going to get those. I'll put links up on the learning page so that you'll have ready links to these. But these are fantastic. They're exactly, I think, what's missing in terms of getting into the environment and working with it in a hands-on way. All right, so
hey, John, are you sharing screen right now?
Pardon me?
Are you sharing screen? Because I don't see anything.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I need to do that. Okay, thank you, Dan. Okay, can you see my screen now?
Yep, it's up now. Got it.
Okay, good. Yeah, this is just really the page I use to manage these things. But basically, these are thumbnails of all of the material that's already available, including the 1-hour walkthrough that John did on Friday for us. All right, so this is going to be great. I strongly urge you to go to use these. The second thing I wanted to cover, and again, I will post the links. Second thing I want to cover is really relates to, it gets us into the actual project. Dan, I wanted to ask you, you wanted us to track all the communication milestones. And one of the things I've already done is I've named the milestones, including, these up here, but did you also want us to include all of the milestones in this chart?
Yeah, that's for Carol's team, and that's all of the stuff that they're going to be tracking. So it's just going to be a check in the box and those puzzle pieces fitting together. The idea behind that is just they all need to be present in order for a participant to be enrolled in MSSA and have a seat in the class.
Okay,
so
great.
There's no specific order for them, as much as they just all need to have a check in the box before we can move forward.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Those are all the areas we track, yes.
Okay, good. A second question I have is, so basically for you and everybody else, I've started with the Excel spreadsheets that you sent. And obviously I'm going to key off of the statement of work as well. But I'm starting with these because this is what you're actually doing right now. And so, for example, I wanted to open this and say, okay, you're asking questions to gather information about hiring partners. The question I have is how do you gather these questions? Do you have an online form, or is it
Yes. So
okay.
What you were just looking at is what I will get when they go online and fill out the form. So those are all questions that they'll answer on the form, and then that comes to me, that spreadsheet.
Okay, perfect. So you get that, and then what we're going to want to do, just as a note to everybody, is we're going to want to have the information that's filled out on the online form get populated directly into the database, right? So you won't have to fill it out, or rather, I don't mean fill it out, but it'll go directly into the database.
John, this is John Kassar.
Hey, John, hi.
Hey, great. Hey, you want to look closely at the statement of work? I think we have that as a phase 2, but that's initially what we want to do to make Dan's life easier. But you want to check that statement of work on that, please.
Okay, will do. Good point. Yeah, I didn't notice you joined us. Thanks, John. Were you, I don't know if you were on when I kind of walked everybody through the work that you did and how to get to it.
No, but that's okay. Don't worry about it. You don't need to hold me up.
Well, fantastic work. I think this really fills in a huge piece. Okay, so anyway, I started, for everybody, I basically started with this information, right? So we've got this is the participant intake. You're going to have, these kinds of fields. So what I did is I went in and I created, where these were not available already, I created some custom fields. For example, branch of service. That doesn't come standard with, with Microsoft Dynamics, nor do, ranks or, some of the other things that would be specific to veterans. So essentially, where I started with this, and John, please jump in, but I know this is new to you too. I've done some stuff over the weekend that I haven't yet shared with you as well. But essentially, I got to this by going first to solutions. Right, I want to go to my solutions, and I click on solutions. Right, and so there's a lot of and John, I'm assuming these solutions are various solutions, test solutions or whatnot that people have created. Actually, I'm not going to wait for this. I'll go right to here.
They've been installed previously in the system for sales, customer service, and so forth. So yes, they're all in there. But
really more as demos, right? I mean, they're not sort of working. I'm guessing.
No, they're actually working. They're completely working applications.
Okay. Well, great. Well, the one that pertains to us is this MS Military Affairs solution. Okay, so we want to go to click on it. Now we go into the Power Apps, and John, please, as always, just guide me if I'm going astray here. But essentially, the key entities that, let me just go do this. The key entities that John and I created were account and contact, right? For obvious reasons, right? You've got a veteran contact, you've got the employer contact, and then of course the account is the employer organization name. And we're going to have to deal with what account we want to assign the veterans to, and that may be something for John and me to talk about. But John, I also added activity and campaign and job. I renamed opportunity job opportunity. I don't know if we're going to need it or not, but I just kind of just FYI, I added these entities on the suspicion that we might need them for this application. Any comment on that?
I gotta get back to you, John.
Okay. All right. So essentially, we'll start with account, and so basically, we go into the account, and what I want to show here is, I've defined the entity, right? So an entity is like it really is like a spreadsheet, right? And so you can use a spreadsheet, but it's really not going to take you very far, as Dan will tell you, until you link it to other spreadsheets that have other kinds of information. That's what the relational nature of this is all about. In any event, so I go now to forms, and I created a form in account that adds the fields, that starts to customize the what Dan and company are going to want and need to manage this. So you can see that it's taking a while to populate, but you've got sort of the account information. I haven't really done a lot with the account, but you can see that you can move things around. You can basically move them and put, I really like this, by the way. It compares really favorably to Salesforce because it's all drag and drop. And Salesforce is not quite there yet, at least not in their classic app. So this is really nice. And you can basically take, for example, a field and just drop it into an area here. I'm not going to save this. I'll just go back. But eventually, what you want to have the related. Let's see. I think project. We're going to have the contacts related to this, right? To an account. Now we will have employees related to this account, but we're also going to want to have veterans related to this account as potential employees that have been referred to the employee. So we're going to have to figure that one out. But that's, I'm going to go ahead and, well, I'll just save and close here. And we'll get back to this later. I didn't do an awful lot with this particular one, but what I want to do is now go to the contacts, right? Because that's where I did most of the work over the weekend. I went to the contacts. I said, okay, look, there's really I created two form types because, again, we've got at least two types of contacts, right? We've got the veteran who is going through the MSSA program and who needs to step through a number of milestones and requirements. But then we have an employer, contact that's going to be the liaison for that employer where we want to place that veteran. Okay, so let's start with the basic contact, and that's going to have. I put the fields in here that relate to that particular role of the employer contact, right? So you got stuff like, okay, personal information, you got contact information, you got additional information. I thought it would be useful to say, well, look, if that person's a veteran, let's indicate so. That's good information to have, right? But we don't want to have their, all of the rest of their military information. That just clutters things up. It's not necessary. So, so this is just a preliminary form that I've made for this particular type of contact. Let's go back and really focus on the veteran, because I think this is where all of the most of the customization is going to be happening, right? So this is I created a different form for veteran, and you're going to see that a lot of the custom stuff is in here as well. And so this is, give this a chance to open up. Okay, now you can see that, okay, we've got the contact, right? And then I've got a career section here in which we're pretty much saying, what's the past and what's the future? What track are they on? For example, so learning path, it's a drop down, and that is, I think, 4 values. You've got the touch points. Actually, I'm going to expand this so that you can see this a little bit more in a realistic perspective. Right. So I just was able to create the format, the layout. Said, okay, the contact information, the career information. So, what education do they have? What cohort ID? Everything relating to helping them get that, to launch that career through MSSA, right? Maybe even a candidate statement, and we can talk about the usefulness of that, but certainly it might be really good to have the candidate in his own words say something and have it right here. But, again, this is just a mock-up. Military service, all right, so we got branch of service, discharge date, MOS, rank, blah, 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 right? Everything relating to military service. So it's all right there. Now we can go down here further and say, okay, here's a place where the recruiter, Carol or Dan or somebody else can make notes that are private. You've got some demographics, which, again, you may find are really good to have. These are optional, but for reporting purposes, they're good to have. I know that, for example, you ask if they're 18 to 24, and I think that's for some kind of other reporting. And I just added these others because typically those are going to be required if you ever are asked for information. Another thing I added here is sort of just the support network. That's what I call it for now. So sponsor would be the person who referred the veteran. Be nice to kind of be able to communicate with them. Who was their instructor and who's their mentor? Now, again, these are things that are optional that we can talk about, but this is a preliminary, mock-up. I'm going to stop right there and see. I'd love to get Dan and John's input at this point, and then we can open it up.
Yeah, I think it looks great. And actually something I wanted to talk to both Johns about was that Carol from the operations team would like to get on a call with everybody and so make sure we're all on the same page with what information and documentation you're going to need from their side. Because my side of it is focused on the hiring partners, the companies that we're working with, and her side is focused on the vets. So this is more of her area of what they're going to be tracking than mine. So I think it would be good even to show this or just to kind of track, have an understanding of what she's going to be tracking from her own words. So hopefully we can get something set up for this week or next.
Fantastic. Yeah. In fact, if you'd like to have her join us for one of these, again, I think there would be value for the students in kind of going through that discussion.
Okay.
Right. It's how the sausage gets made, and that's kind of the whole point here. So that would be my recommendation if she's okay with that.
Okay. Yeah. Are you fine with either of the next two calls for this week?
Sure. Wednesday would be fantastic because we are, in the process of working on this now.
Okay. Yeah. Let me suggest that to her.
Okay. Fantastic. And one of the things that I did for these drop downs, right? So branch of service, MOS, rank. I created a list. John, I forget what it's called, an option list, I think, or something. And
correct, option set.
Option set, in the assumption that I can basically call on that option set from one of these, either single select or multiple select drop downs. Is that fair?
Correct.
Okay. I can't remember how to get there right now, but for all the rest of you, basically what it is, it's a list of values that would comprise a drop down, a drop down list, and it's really nice that it's in a different table, and you can basically tell which of these multiple select fields, you can basically tell it which table to use. So branch of service, for example, is, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and Coast Guard. And one of the things for Dan, what I found useful is to just say branch of service, and then I have a separate field for like status, which would include whether you're in Guard or Reserves or active duty or, you know what I mean, rather than creating a separate branch of service, because status is going to matter. You could be active duty and then you go into the reserves, for example. And then, when you're finally discharged, then that's when you become a veteran. But that's a Carol thing, it sounds like. So we'll discuss it with her and make the argument for why it works better that way.
Hey, John, this is Victor.
Yes, sir.
John, are you able to immediately go into a preview mode after you made some changes? Like, can we see this, how it looks easily as you're developing it?
Yes, right there at the top bar, it says preview.
Okay. Preview. Oh, yeah. Good. Okay, thank you, John. I forgot how I got there, but yeah, so desktop client, all right. Oh, whoops. Preview.
Create form.
Create form, okay. The point, big, really important point. A lot of this is pretty intuitive. I mean, I haven't taken any of the training at all, but and yes, I've worked with Salesforce, so I kind of have an unfair advantage here. But a lot of it's pretty. You can sort of figure stuff out. That's the really cool thing about it. And Victor, I think you'd agree with that. Having learned Access, I mean, this is kind of like, they've already done so much of the work for you, and it's so nice, so well laid out in a very logical way. So anyway, here we are. We have, education is not one of the things, but MSSA, learning path, here we go. Yeah. So let me just open this thing up so we can see the whole thing. So here's an example, right? So we got the learning path, right? Cloud application, cybersecurity. So these are already in here that you can use. Branch of service. Okay, here's where okay. Well, here's all right.
Those are other those other default values. Yep. Yeah.
Right.
The only and then the concern is whether you want to have a drop-down pick list all in separate tables, because you could have 30, 40, 50, 80, or 200 of them, or if you want to have it all in one table and then filter it for which field you're looking at when you're using the list. So that's something that you and Carol, John, you'll probably discuss whether you want to have one table for each pick list or a different table for each and every pick list. Those are concerns that you're gonna have to answer.
For sure, yeah. So you can see that the security, I actually did connect the right table to this drop down, unlike the other one, which I have to fix. But let's see, so status. Oh, okay. Well, again, this is just a beginning. So, okay, gender, yeah, race, date of birth. So,
do you always have to have a blank field in your pick list? I guess this might be a John Kassar question. Do you have to always have a blank field if you want them to be able to blank out the field, or if you don't have a null or a blank, can you just highlight and hit delete?
I'm not sure I understand your question. Sorry, say it again.
If let's say you made a selection for a field but you want to be able to have an empty field as a selection, do you have to have an empty field in your list?
No, it can be. So if it's a blank pick list, if you have a pick list with 5 values and you choose not to update that field with any value, it will remain blank. Now, however, you cannot save the record if you have made that field a mandatory field, such as the branch of service or discharge date, which are mandatory fields by the little red asterisk.
Oh, yeah. And then so for MOS, you could just blank it out. You don't have to have a blank one in your 5 choices. You just be able to hit delete, I guess, on the one that you've already selected. Certainly you can leave it blank if it's not a mandatory field. But once you've selected one, sometimes it's tough to go back.
If you notice, look at the pick list that he has right there. The first value is blank, and that comes by default. So you've not added a blank value; it just happens to be there by default.
Yep, that's the answer. I'm wondering. Thank you. That's a good start, John. It's a good start.
Well, we're going to need, if anybody, and I think we can. I think we'll be able to, because John has offered to provide, a regular review on this. I think it's going to be possible to have any of you who want to take on some subset of this. And by the way, I'm just going to be much more actively involved because of the schedule primarily, and because of John's availability. John and I've got a good working relationship, and we can kind of go through stuff pretty quickly where we need to meet the deadline. But I think I'm feeling a lot more comfortable, and John, let me know if you would, but I'm feeling pretty comfortable about, kind of divvying up some of the work so you guys can get some hands-on experience, which was sort of the idea at the beginning. We can talk about that later, but I think it'll become more clear which of those things can be parceled out without compromising the schedule.
Yep.
Yeah, so John, one question I have is is there any way to distinguish between record types? Like, for example, I know you call record types, in other words, I'm talking about record types within a particular entity.
I know exactly what you're saying. So
Yes.
the record type of a veteran candidate
Yes.
versus a employer contact, the answer is yes. And when you do that, the entire form will change. So it will change no matter what. So you can do that. Not a problem. That's a lesson for another time. You and I can take that offline.
Okay. But I mean, I can continue to build the forms knowing that I can assign the forms to to a new record type later.
Yes.
Okay, beautiful. That was my assumption. I'll continue to go down this path. There's a lot of stuff I need to do with the forms, but okay, that's really good to know. And then, as many of you are probably thinking right now, we need a way to connect the veteran candidates to potential employers. Now, in Salesforce, it would be something called like a junction object, that you create a separate object that allows you to sort of, connect the contact with not with the employer, but with like a job opportunity, let's say, and allows you to take multiple job opportunities. If you only have one, then you can just use the opportunities, I would think. But in other words, you want to take them through, if you recall all of the milestones, there's probably a dozen or so that we have to put in there. And so and you have 4 different learning tracks. What if somebody goes down 2 different learning tracks? And how do you track them through those milestones all the way through to a job with multiple employers, right? Because you're going to have multiple employers involved until they finally do get a job, right? Are you following me? So it's not a simple, straightforward thing. We've got to find a way to track all of that stuff with multiple variables. Now normally you would do that.
John?
Yes.
Did you? I'm curious if you started with I know you don't want to dig too deep, but I'm curious if you started with a diagram of your database structure, because that kind of question that you're asking, in my mind, I'm thinking table related to another table related to another table, and the first one would be the veteran. In other words, if you lay out your table design, your entire table structure design, those questions answer themselves as you're determining how you need to flow that person through, and then you'll be building on that. So you would have an employee that's related into the potential positions, and then each potential position has a potential learning track. And then how you look at it and how you connect the dots through your forms is a little more complicated, and I've never done it. But I think starting with all your design parameters and a database structure, RDBMS diagram, is I think how those questions all come out.
Well, with your access experience, we were all in the service. Be careful when you point out a need, right? I mean, I think you just volunteered to do that, Victor.
Oh, well, yeah, and actually, yeah, I'm looking forward to diving in. So if that's something we could do offline, or if anybody's available to work with me, I've got most of my Saturdays free, or the evenings. I'd be glad to help with that.
Well, here's my suggestion is if you can go off and, if maybe you've got a Visio or something like that you can use. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a schematic diagramming thing within this application. But if you can develop something as you would with Access and kind of show how that works. I have an idea in my mind, but you and I could go over it maybe, we are on a fast track, right? So I don't think we can even wait till next Saturday. I think we just need to have an idea now about how we're going to go about doing this. That's my feeling.
Yeah. Well, yeah, let's offline. When we're done with this call, you and I will talk about when we could do that, when my next availability is, and we'll come up with something and then run it past the pros and see what we come up with.
And we can comment on it and maybe finalize it in one of our calls. Now, one question I have for John is it possible, John, to sort of, if you will, borrow one of the elements from another application like talent management, or not? John's probably off.
No, sorry. I know what you're asking. I saw your email earlier this morning, John, and the answer would be no to grab that from talent. So no.
Okay. Because that would be the obvious solution right there, is just to use that functionality. We have a talent, addendum or component in Salesforce. It works for what I think Dan and Carol are trying to do. I think would work absolutely great. But I think we can get this done also. We absolutely can get it done within this application for sure. Okay, well, I think we've done a good deal. Would love to, hear questions or comments. As I say, I will post the great stuff that John did over the weekend up to, I'll put an announcement in the learning community, and then with, permanent links in the curriculum page. But open up. Time for questions. No? You guys are shy today. Hey, Sarita.
Hello, how are you?
Good.
Okay, I had a question about the diagram that you or Vic is going to be working on. Will it be something like a flow chart, whereas, we can, almost like a if and then kind of diagram, or like how would it look?
Victor, I'll let you.
Or I can answer the question.
John.
So it is not an if-then. Database diagrams are different. It's not an if-then. It's pretty much, here's a box with a entity or object, in this case, an account or an account record, for example, and then another object that the account record relates to, and this would be a employer, for example, would be contacts. And that, if you recall going through, Sarita, the explanation of the one-to-many versus the one-to-one, contacts are a one-to-many to accounts, meaning there are many contacts associated with an account. So the diagram is actually, think about it this, there's two boxes, and let's just say the left one is accounts, the right one is contacts, and there's a line that's drawn from accounts to contacts, but typically at the end of that line, as it's going from left to right, the end of that line will be potentially 3 prongs. And what that is highlighting is that is a one-to-many relationship. Does that make sense,
yes.
Sarita?
Yes, that makes sense.
And if it's a one-to-one relationship, I don't think you want to go into all the one-to-one relationships, because all the one-to-one relationships is every single field you are seeing here, which you definitely don't want to do. There you go. That's, yeah, John
Okay.
just drawn the prongs.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
So that's what it's going to look like, especially, Victor, if you're planning on using Visio or something. Depends what you want to use for that.
Hey, Victor, I would, if you could, go ahead and create what you envision this to look like, and just shoot it over to me, or if you like, post it in the learning community. I can comment on it in there. That might be actually a great way to do it. Again, just a kind of a learning thing. But one of the way I envision it, it just, if it helps, is you've got a candidate, right? And then you've got an employer. Now that employer is going to have perhaps arguably multiple job opening, or could have, right? They're going to have a job opening now. Maybe they have several contemporaneously. Maybe they have a job opening now and one every 3 months. But the job itself, in my mind, should be another object or another entity, right? So jobs, right? And then you need another entity in between jobs and the candidates to track the progress between that candidate and that job, or any job for that matter, right? So it's kind of a, it might be simpler to do that, but it almost involves creating two objects, or two entities, I'm sorry.
And we presume they're going to need a training track, and even if they don't, I guess it doesn't matter. But so at any particular employer, they may have 1 or 2 or 3 training tracks to be capable for that job at that employer, and then they may have another employer with only 1 training track, and then they might have an employer where there's like little or no training track for each candidate, and they could be interested in numerous employers, and then at the same time they're interested in possibly numerous training tracks at each employer.
Well,
I think in other words, we have to account for all of that. It may not account for those possibilities.
Well, the employer is not going to set the sort of the process necessarily. It's really, so you've got the training part, number one, but then you've got the hiring part, and hiring pretty much is going to go through pretty standard steps, right? Like the job was referred to the referral, interview, offer, acceptance, whatever, and we can track it through that. But that process would apply to each separate job opportunity. You see what I'm saying? So I think we can standardize the process, but we can't manage multiple opportunities with just one object. One entity. We can talk about that further, but Victor, that's and you might come up with something way better than that, but that's kind of the way I'm thinking about it right now.
Yeah, no, I get you, and we'll have to we'll go over the specs. I want to go over the specs with you. I didn't read them as closely, I'm sure, as you did, and then the conversation just like this, just to come up with a how we expect the canvas to look. And then offline, I'll come up with how I expect to paint the canvas, and then you refine it.
Yeah, I mean, please, as soon as you can get to it, just anything rough at all is going to be just fine. Send it over. I'll take a look, and then we can just have a dialogue around it. But I'm going to be working on this in the meantime for unrelated stuff, and trying to flesh this out a little bit more, so we can. So we're not dealing with the basics for too long.
Okay, and on that note, John, it's I will have to be taking care of some business here for about 45 minutes shortly. Would we be able to talk and invite any students that want to talk maybe like an hour from now? And again, I feel more comfortable before I start come up with anything rough. I still feel more comfortable talking to you for 20 minutes because I don't like to come up with it twice. Could we do that like in an hour or something like that?
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm pretty backed up today.
Okay.
And I was hoping,
yeah.
Yeah, I would prefer if you could just create something, whatever, and then just, send it over and I could take a look at, because I don't want to invent stuff twice, if I can help it.
Okay.
Hey, question for you, John. Have you shared the statement of work?
Yes.
He did.
It's
okay.
It's in the it's in the learning community. It's posted there.
And was that you, Victor, who called? Who was that?
Yeah, that's me that's been asking the last couple of minutes worth of dialogue. I do have a statement of service printed out that I can go through and then come up with something for you, John Reynolds. Yeah.
Okay. We're going way beyond the statement of work. There's a comment in here, and I think that's right. We're a ways over what these normally would be, these check-ins, but I think this is. I hope you agree. This is a good session, good progress, and added with all the other stuff that John and others have done. I think you've got plenty of material. One really key point that John made earlier is as you go into this material and you ask, you do your research. You're going to do research no matter how senior and how professional you become with this stuff. You're always going to be doing research, and that's going to point you to other stuff, right? And that other stuff, public domain stuff that's not in Microsoft, is arguably more useful for you at this, for this purpose than a lot of the stuff that's been published and official, right? So please take advantage of that. If you see something, if you stumble onto something that you think is really valuable for everybody else, go ahead and post it. And gradually the good stuff will bubble up to the top. And that will serve all the veterans that come after you in this program very well. All right. Well, look, great to see you all. And
John, this is John. I know you've got your backed up. If you have some time, I would love to have you stay on this call here.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I will. Okay. Well, we're good unless anybody has any last minute thoughts or questions. Okay. Hey, thank you, everybody. John and I are going to stay on the call, so feel free to drop off and we'll talk. And by the way, Victor, contact me directly if you like. I just, like I say, I think, I need to really focus on some things one-on-one here as much as I can. But if you feel you need to reach me.
I completely I completely understand.
Okay. Well, thank you. And thanks to everybody else. And we'll see you on Wednesday. Take care. All right. I think I can actually dismiss.
Yeah, let's make sure. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Dismiss Victor. Dismiss Jim. And dismiss Victor. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
It's, right now. Oh, there's two John Reynolds on the line.
I don't know, but I'm still here. Don't worry about it.
Oh, that's right. You had no. I think it's because you're using my login information.
Oh, yeah.
I was getting messages from John Reynolds to me, and I'm thinking, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Now,
okay. Yeah, it's because I should log out. I should log out. So John, I know that you kind of dived in and started configuring and what have you. You and I probably should have had some time prior because one of the things you got rid of, which is kind of key to all this, is the whole activity management pane. I don't know what happened to that.
Oh.
I know it was there. You got rid of it. It was in the middle.
Oh, okay.
The whole timeline. It's like in your configuration, you got rid of it.
Yeah. Is that something we can add back in?
That one's a tough one to add back in. I just don't frickin' remember how to do that, to add that back in. Let's see here. Let's see something here. Let me see.
You know what?
I'm going to log in.
I think I was assuming that. I mean, I just wanted to. Yeah. I remember doing it. And I just remember thinking, okay, for this form.
No. Yeah.
Oh gosh. Okay.
So who am I logged in as? Mod administrator. Sure. Okay.
Do you want the screen?
No, I'm just going to log into my own here.
Okay.
Custom. Let me share my screen.
Okay.
You want to make me the presenter?
Yeah.
Please.
Okay, I'm gonna make John Reynolds, the other John Reynolds, a presenter. Okay. Yeah, okay, you got it now.
Okay, share.
And
I noticed you created some option sets that you got to link in. You just created a lot more work for yourself. And I know that you're kind of hunting and pecking and doing some things because you haven't been trained, but this is definitely, you're just creating a little more work and a little more confusion here.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's go to contact here. And really, the easiest way to do it is to create two different forms because there's so many things that are going to change. Let me think about this here. Yeah. Forms, come on. There we go. Oh, so you have a veteran form and you have a contact form. What's the difference?
Well, the difference is that, the contact form doesn't have MOS and rank and stuff like that. All the in other words, one's for a student and the other one's for an employer.
Okay, let's look at the contact one here. Because for some reason it looked like a contact one. The one I was looking at earlier. That you were showing in the meeting.
Well, I did show the contact. I really haven't done much with the contact form. I just kind of moved a couple of things around, more like in formatting. It was the veteran form where I really did most of the stuff.
Okay. Yeah, in the contact form, you also got rid of the timeline.
Yeah. Now, activities is over on the left. The right. So
notes
under common. Right. So yeah. Right.
Under where?
Under right there. Boom. Yeah. Activities. So is that something?
That's not it. No.
Okay. All right.
I'm wondering how to bring it in. Let's see something here. Production. I do have access to it. Shit. What's the URL for it?